Hello, my name is Lavana Mishakin and I will be presenting the FarmLink proposal. So I want to briefly go over exactly what FarmLink is. FarmLink is an app that connects fresh food to charities via farms. FarmLink also allows the farmers to sell their produce to the local community. So after a time of researching the target audience, finding out what the challenges are for fresh food and farmers being able to sell and make a little bit more profit from their produce, I've finally come up with a design and a prototype. So after FarmLink went through a few critiques, there have been some discoveries which were the main challenges were visual coherence and usability. So there were still parts of the application that needed to be cleaned up in order to make it usable for different types of users. If the app is not usable, this hinders FarmLink from being um, a good app that can really do some good and connect people with fresh foods and farmers to increase their profitability. So after receiving feedback, I wanted to know exactly what could be done to fix these issues. So the research questions that I came up with were: how does the visual coherence of the FarmLink app impact user satisfaction and engagement? Two, what specific usability issues within the FarmLink app hinder users from effectively completing their key tasks, such as making donations and scheduling pickups? Three, how does the organization of the content within the app influence users' understanding of charity missions and their willingness to donate? So that basically means if not having an app that users trust or they can understand the content, that could lead to drop-offs. And with drop-offs, that means that a lot of donations won't be receiving fresh food and farms will not be able to increase their profitability. So the main objective is that I need to evaluate the consistency of the visual elements, measure user satisfaction, and evaluate content organization for user engagement. So the FarmLink app would be serving a variety of different users, but the primary focus would be on farmers, charities, and food banks. So the local community will be playing a major important part in the FarmLink app because these are the users that are going to be buying directly from the farmers through the listings that the farmers are able to post within the app. And that will, of course, again, increase the profitability of the farmers' produce, and it would also prevent spoilage. And of course, the farmers will be playing the major role in the app because these are the users that are going to be supplying the food to the different food banks, selling the food, fresh food to the local community, because there are a lot of different communities that don't have access to fresh food within, close proximity to where they're located. And so that's why I believe that FarmLink will solve this major sustainability issue. So it's really important to have this app tested because it could be very beneficial to the users, and it can also help with one of the issues of not having access to fresh foods nearby. So in order to streamline the design of the FarmLink app, to make sure that it's usable, it would have to go under a few different research processes. An heuristic evaluation where experts can pinpoint the design issues, surveys, questionnaires that would be done by the local community or people that would be using the app, usability testing, which will pinpoint maybe particular usability issues that were overseen. And then lastly, A and B testing, which would provide different versions of the app and see which app do most of the users gravitate towards. And of course, heat maps that lets you know what works because according to the heat maps, you'll be able to see exactly where the user has been focusing the most within that design or that app. Now, of course, there are strengths and weaknesses for each one. So the strengths of the heuristic evaluation would be experts can spot the design problems fairly quickly. However, the weakness is that they're not the actual users of the app. So that's what would lead to surveys and questionnaires. Now, with the strengths of the surveys is you can get a lot of feedback, but some feedback sometimes, depending on how long the surveys are, people may not want to answer all of the questions, so that could be a potential weakness. Usability testing would be very helpful because it would be able to pinpoint exactly how is it usable, what's not working, and what is working. The only downfall is because, not downfall, but weakness is that FarmLink would have a variety of different users. So what may work for one user may not necessarily work for all users. And then finally, A and B testing. Um, that would be great because you can kind of filter out which design works the best. However, that would be time consuming because a few different versions would have to be made. And then finally, for the heat maps, although we'll be able to see where all of the attention is drawn to specifically on that part of the app, however, we won't know why. We won't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe that part was confusing, maybe they liked it. So in order to get the testing done, that will require participant recruitment. So as I mentioned before, there are going to be a few different tests, but these would be the inclusion criteria. The participants would have to be 18 years or older and have, of course, basic knowledge on how to use an app, to download an app, to create an account, and things like that. The user types would be farmers or individuals that like to donate, or that would be using the app to receive charities, such as, of course, different charities, and people that would be interested in buying produce, which that goes back to our target audience. So the exclusion criteria would be people who do not have, the basic skills in knowing how to use a mobile app, download an app, create an account, and things of that nature. So it's pretty much open to many different users because the FarmLink app would be catering to different types of users, people that want to buy fresh food. So that would include like a variety of different users. So that's why it's such a broad spectrum as far as the exclusion criteria. So in order to get participants, they would also have to fill out different consent forms, which would be included in the user testing documentation. So this is just covering general considerations and consent procedures. And because there'll be different usability tests conducted, that would require different consent forms for each different test. So here are just the general um, procedures. So, of course, after the testing, there'll be a collection of data and an analysis of the data. So I want to briefly go over the different procedures. So, of course, for each test that would require recruiting participants. Each test would be about 30 to 60 minutes long, and I would provide participants with a brief app and ask them to perform specific tasks. Now, this is specifically for the usability test. For the A/B testing, I would randomly assign participants to the two different versions of the app, and I would collect on user interactions such as completion rates, time taken to complete task, and user satisfaction ratings. For heat maps, that would be collecting data to, on the user's interaction with the interface. And I would ensure that no personal information would be collected at that time. And that would be really important because users would be using they'll be browsing and using the app. So whatever it is that they're looking at on the app, that doesn't need to be shared with anybody other than the people conducting the test. And so for surveys and questionnaires, of course, like I said, there would be a sample size of 8 people, um, and I would collect, information from their surveys about how they feel about the app, what works, what didn't work, a very in-depth questionnaire just to pinpoint, of course, what the issues are. And so a lot of this information would be um, qualitative data that would be collected. So about how the users feel. We're not really too much dealing with numbers in terms of maybe when it comes to the heat map and seeing and counting how many interactions were done on specific parts of the interface. So with the heuristic evaluation that would be done on the interface of the laptop or the mobile devices, I would take that information and kind of filter out what is usable, what's not, what causes confusion, and eliminate those features or those pain points within the system. So this is the timeline. So I want to break down the process, but altogether to get every part of the app tested would take about 23 weeks, and this is with the sample size of 8 to 10 individuals per test. So in week 1 through 2, there'll be the preparation, finalizing the recruitment materials, tools such as the surveys, the different versions of the application, and developing a consent form per test. 3 to 5 weeks would be the recruitment process. So this would, of course, be recruiting participants that fit the criteria for testing, such as, of course, charities, farmers, and the local community. So for week 6 through 7, that would be the usability testing, which of course I'll be using 8 people, and these sessions would last from 30 to 60 minutes each, so about half an hour to an hour. During that time, I'll be collecting screen recordings, notes, and participant feedback. For week 8 through 9, that would be the A/B testing, which I would divide the participants into 2 groups, and they would test the different versions of the application. Then I would switch that group over, and then they would test the opposite versions of what they tested previously. Week 10 and 11, 10 through 11, I'm sorry, that would be the heat map tracking, which will, of course, as we went over before, tracking the interactions of the users using a heat map software. So that would probably most likely be done by a company that conducts that sort of testing. So week 12 through 13 would be the heuristic evaluation. That's when the usability experts would come in and test the screens and measure them against Nielsen's heuristics, which is to find out how usable the app is, where there are different pain points or issues or parts of the app that could be problematic, or I'm sorry, the design that could be problematic. So weeks 14 through 15 will be distributing the surveys, analyzing the satisfaction surveys after the previous test, which would be the usability and A/B testing. Week 16 through 19, which is the important part, would be the all parts are important, but it would be the data analysis. So that would be to analyze the usability test, the A/B test, and the heuristic evaluation, the heat map. That's kind of just to really pinpoint what the issues are to make the design better than what it was before. So week 20 and 21, that would be a survey analysis, and it'd be analyzing the survey results from the qualitative and quantitative data collected, meaning just looking for different themes within the research, specifically to pinpoint uh, maybe the major issues that overall a lot of users would be having with particular parts of the interface. So week 22 and 23, after receiving all the data, finding themes, uh, all of the results will be compiled into different reports, and from those reports, I would take the information gathered and kind of reiterate the design that's already existing with FarmLink. And so that concludes the duration of the project, and thank you so much for your time.